咩棟棟啊？
呢啲咪係啦，下低
一棟係100個人。
唔知喎。
唔係啊，其他哪一棟咧
？It's goodbye 啦。你咪影下嗱，你擰住我幫你1、2、3插上去條。
唔影喎，點解唔影啊？
嗰陣影。
影，點解唔影啊？
Obvious group people will go around us. If these parts will try to come to the middle, okay? So just use little psychological manipulation. So, you guys know where you are? Yeah, this is formally called the Memorial to the Murdered Jews of Europe. Yeah, for the Nazi Holocaust. And it's a piece from 2004 that was inaugurated a year later in 2005. Now, as you can imagine, it's a pretty controversial piece for a variety of good reasons. The architect who had actually done this was a man named Peter Eisenman, is a man named Peter Eisenman, he's a Jewish guy from New York City. And there are a lot of really good and less good reasons for such a fact. I think the biggest one, though, is when it was first completed, the Jewish people of Berlin and of Germany actually came here and said, well, if you, Berlin, are going to do memorials for the murdered victims of the Nazi Holocaust, what about all the other groups who were also murdered in the Holocaust? What about the socialists, the communists? What about the P4 program, euthanization of
人喺度啊？
就係影，唔好影咁多。
What about the 500,000?
等人。
冇人啦。
等人啊！可以。
冇人啦。又有個人啦。因為每次影都有個人啫。
Imagine the controversy that kicked up, and of course what happened was they ended up committing to building another 12 memorials to honor all of the other groups as well. As of last year, I believe there are now 4 that have been completed. So this is sort of a slow process, but you can see the amount of work that's done. So Eisenman's designed 2,711 steles. And stele is actually just an old Greek word to denote a vertical stone used to mark a grave. And these are not graves, but this is sort of the idea behind it. And the other thing being that if you're wondering what it means, we don't know. Eisenman never told anyone. He was pushed really hard in interviews for a whole year before he finally came forward and said something rather poignant, which was actually something on the scale of the Nazi Holocaust would be impossible to represent literally, and thus the only appropriate way to do justice to it will be by creating an abstraction. You force people to come and confront memories, ideas, emotions, however the case might be, and then draw their own conclusions. And so in reality there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, if you look at, this is why I brought you in first, by the way, without saying anything. I thought it's better if you see it and sort of get a first impression without having any preconceived idea of it. So it's got these undulations, very uneven. You're always sort of off balance, right? Even if you don't feel particularly off balance, it's forcing you to pay attention somehow. You're always very present in here. The stelae themselves, each one of these is actually mathematically unique, right? So they're all the same shape and color, but each one is its own individual. And I think this gray is also very important because what it means is that even, for example, your gray shirt is going to pop against here. So any life in here sort of automatically is very, very obvious. And in the midst of this field of stelae marking death, you've got very clear signs of that. This lady, for example, this guy will walk right through it and he will just go, poof, gone, right? And you have no idea whether he's still there or gone or dead or alive or any of these things, right? There's a lot of symbolism in that. For example, right, the sound, of course, if it bounces around, you hear things from strange places, it's hard to find anyone again. So I would say another thing would be that you actually can't see from the outside how big it is. I think a lot of times people do themselves a disservice. They drive by in a bus or they walk by, they don't actually come inside. And you don't understand that all of a sudden the sky rises up, these stelae reach 4.7 meters, right? They're very much swallowed in here. And you can see right through, but in order to get out, you actually have to go past all these potential confrontations with strangers. You have no idea who they are. Friends, enemies, and I think it's very symbolic of the way that the Jewish people, for example, were forced to watch friends and neighbors turn against them under mounting Nazi pressure. This is one of these things that I'm quite fond of referencing. This is a Harvard psychologist from middle of last year had written an amazing piece on what he described as cognitive misery. and the way that we as human beings are always looking for easy answers to complicated problems. And so, you want good on one side and evil on the other, and it's just not that simple. What you actually have, of course, is fanatic Nazi extremists on one side, and the other side you have people who had no choice. Hitler used concentration camps. You have blonde-haired, blue-eyed, middle-class Germans who went along with this, which is also inexcusable, obviously. And you had people crying in their flats about their country being taken over by men with machine guns, and every shade of grey in between all of those things. I would say one of the other biggest controversies about this is, of course, this is 2,711 times 4 perfectly flat vertical walls in a city famed above all else perhaps for its graffiti, its street art. And so Germans are very worried about neo-Nazis coming here and spray painting SS ruins and swastikas and whatever else. Yeah. And of course, this is Germany and it is Berlin and there are neo-Nazis here. I mean, surprise. What I think is interesting, however, is that there aren't actually any more here than you find anywhere else. France, Spain, Italy, the United States for that matter. We all saw what happened last week. Irrespective of all of that, what ends up happening is the director of the project is a lady named Léa Roche, and she wants to contract a company, treat all the stelae with a special graffiti-proof paint. It's called Prosecticil, so that if the guards find anything, it washes right off with soap and water. Originally, Eisenman, the architect, actually opposed this, and I thought his theory on this, his sentiment was really interesting. He said, look, I want the German people to be able to interact with their memorial however they want. And if that means they spray paint swastikas on it, that will be commentary in them. And consequently, the German government's response to that will also be commentary in them. He lost, though, and Roche decided to treat all the stelae, and it works very well. So, you don't really find any graffiti in here. The problem was that it came out 2 weeks later that the company she contracted was Degussa, who turned out to be the daughter company of IG Farben, who's the same concern that had actually produced originally the Zucrobe cyanide gas used in the gas chambers. So, oops, right? You can imagine the controversy that this, of course, kicked up, and I would say Eisenman's comments on this were also interesting. He'd opposed this project in the beginning, and what he finally said was that something along the lines of basically, here we are, it's now 60 years later, and when is it enough? And obviously you could argue both sides of that for a lifetime, and we're not here to do that. But what I do often challenge people to remember is that whether we like it or not, we are here in the midst of a country, and in fact a world, built on the remains of the same economic infrastructure that was either voluntarily through coercion or outright force, in fact supporting the Nazi Holocaust. I mean, you need look no further than Auschwitz-Birkenau, which was built with slush funds from the Deutsche Bank, was insured by Allianz immediately afterwards. Hugo Boss did the uniforms, Ferdinand Porsche did the tanks, IBM did the machinery to track all the deportations, and in the United States, of course, you've got Henry Ford who fueled both sides of the war. I mean, there's no getting away from this. And Hugo Boss, we all know this name? Clothing designer?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I always mention Boss because he's an easy one to sort of just, people have that reference point. And Boss himself was, of course, a really awful man, right? Awful, virulent anti-Semite. Many years after he died, his company employed him. And well, actually, you know what? We are a big corporation. We cannot change that our founder was.
其實咁仲好㗎。
What we can do is hire a historian to go through our private.
佢倒石屎跟住咧嗰啲 bubble 啊嘛，咁樣仲好，仲 last longer。如果 flat 嗰啲咧仲會爆。會其實係話有裂開嗰啲咧就係咁，呢啲你咧就唔會裂開啊！你睇咁多都冇裂開就係咁。因為個 bubble 喺頂，仲疏啦。嗰啲冇，其實冇 bubble 嗰度㗎。
And actually, in Holland, he didn't fix it either. It's a nice gesture, but it doesn't bring those murdered people back, and nor